Since men have become sedentary, they have sought to exploit nature. Farming made civilization a natural possibility. Essentially, without agriculture, there'd be no culture.
The early literatures talking about the songs of the herdsmen, the songs of the drovers, the songs of the shepherds. We see farming so intimately connected with the development of literature that it is fascinating. Without farming and the tallying of the herds, we don't get an alphabet developing.
For example, the Sumerians, who lived in the part of the world now known as Iraq, were one of the first true civilizations in world history. 11,000 years ago, Sumerian farmers began to grow the cereals barley and wheat.
The earliest farmers would develop their agricultural enterprises within a specific geographical location. This is Mesopotamia, the land between the two rivers, the Tigris and the Euphrates.
In many parts of the Middle East yet today, you will see scenarios where these grains are being planted, harvested, as they were 10,000 years ago.
While Sumerians were growing their crops, flocks of wild sheep were being herded in the Zagros mountain range. On today's maps, the Zagros mountain range lies predominantly in Iran. Then, about 6,500 years ago, the invention of the plow took farming to a whole new level, despite the invention initially being made out of the wrong material.
The plow was basically made of wood. That's not the best technology for producing a high amount of food products. The modern farmer would recognize still today, the basic technology in grain production and food production, certainly agricultural production, is the plow.
The first agricultural revolution quietly developed over the course of 3,500 years. Agriculture transformed humankind and made everything else that came after it possible. It's inescapable. A society that has trouble feeding itself isn't going to last long. Agriculture's upside was clear, but living off the land and living so close to animals was not without its side effects.
The proximity to cattle, to their daily agricultural activities, and to the land itself, all this also generated concrete threat of being transmitted with different kinds of disease and infections.
Living with this fatality, thousands of years ago, ancient Egyptian farmers had invented a kind of modern agriculture. They sought to produce enough food to feed their population. In order to accomplish that, they would have to do some terraforming of their own. Without benefit of an instruction manual, the Egyptians terraformed along the Nile River. Practically everything they did was being done for the first time. They grew crops along the banks of that river. The crops benefited from the annual floods that left behind kemet, a rich black soil. This fertile soil was ideal for growing healthy crops. In its own way, Egyptian agriculture was as much of an achievement as the building of the pyramids.
It became important very early for the Egyptians to understand how to deal with their river in order to employ the water of the river itself to grow their crops and to grow grain along the river valley.
The Egyptians grew wheat, barley, vegetables, figs, melons, pomegranates, and vine. They also grew flax, which was then made into linen. Grain was certainly a versatile crop. The ancient Egyptians relied on it for their staple diet of bread, porridge, and beer. Egyptian farmers also grew vegetables, including cabbage, beans, cucumbers, lettuce, onions, and leeks. Through century after century, it's a way of life that hasn't really changed all that much. Famous for their canal systems and their invention of the shaduf, they may have been the first to use the water wheel. They attached a bucket to a long pole at one end and put a weight at the other end. The buckets were dropped into the Nile, filled with water, and raised up with water wheels.
It should be even more important. It should be acknowledged as more important, of course, a form of sustainable agriculture. And again, we have many lessons to learn from the ancient world, even in drier regions of the world that they control, using smart water infrastructures that were sustainable. Whereas today, as you know, with all the technology, the water has become more accessible, but that has also led to many problems in making the area more arid than before.
As in many technical fields, the ancient Egyptians invented many things that are still used today, and certainly the very first flood warning system. It was called the Nilometer. It measured the Nile and predicted its flooding. By mastering the water and fertilizing the land, the first farmers have undoubtedly laid the foundations of civilization.